Okay, and after I talked to Ned Batchelor, the head of the Boston meetup, he said that I needed a better title, and that's why I added the title from the tweet, which was Collections Not Counters. Where have you been all my life? This is beginner talk. This is novice level, as it says. It's more about, here, let me go into it. You might find yourself, if you've just started learning Python after doing other things, that you can get it to work. And you can get it to work like you got Fortran to work or like you got C to work. But there's a lot of cool things in Python that you can use that will make it more fun and more flexible, make your code better. So we're going to go over that. We're going to use lists and sets and tuples. I was calling them tuples. Tuples? Yeah,
I don't know.
I said tuple. I said tuple last night, and my husband said, "Isn't that tuple?" Is there a vote? How many tuple and how many tuples?
I hear tuples a lot more.
All right. Yeah. All right. Fine. Dictionaries. I only have 60 slides in 40 minutes, so we're fine. Okay. We're going to show. We're going to use tuples as dictionary keys, and we're going to use enumerate. Okay, so the way to do something in general, I find, is you get something working and then you make it better. Okay, this is a CSV file, just in case. And it doesn't have to have commas. You can separate it by a pipe character or by tabs. The ones we use at work are tab separated. And if I bring that into Excel, I can tell it to look at the comma. It'll change it all into columns. And you might be aware that there is a well-known package for handling complicated CSV files, but if you don't have a lot to do, you might want to roll your own pandas. Okay, so there's a marvelous built-in structure called a dict reader, which will read in. You open up a file, that's a CSV file, and it will read it in, and it will turn it into dictionaries. So for each line in that file I showed you earlier, it automatically knows, you can tune it. So sometimes, our CSV files don't have headers, but a lot of them do. So it automatically does take the first row of the file and call it a header. And then it builds a dictionary. It says, okay, here, the first line, the color was red, the shape was square, and it goes on. Now, I looked at that, and when I first saw it, I was like, cool, because automatically, once I set something to the dict reader, it knew the field names without me reading the first line, and I was like, oh, great. So I can maybe you guys are smarter than I am, but I thought that I could just say, okay, so R is now the entire structure. It has read in my whole file and created a set of dictionaries. It doesn't really work that way. So this is showing you how I goofed.
Where's the goof?
Okay, so the goof is, so I said, okay, so I'll say the headers are field names, and what I wanted to do is, while I'm, okay, so I thought R was the whole dictionary reader, so I said, okay, print the header, print the head, here you have color, and then for every row in my dictionary reader, print the value that's under that column, and that worked great for the first column, but then it used up the file. It got to the bottom, and it was happy to print the next head and headers, which was size, but it didn't have any more file to read, so it was blank, and then it got to the shape, and it didn't have any more, so I said, okay, that's not how you do it. So this is how we can do it. You have to save things as you read it through. It's not going to do all the work for you. So I create we already had the set of the head of set of all possible values, so we're collecting them in a set, and then as we read through the row, we're collecting each of these into a set. Now what we have is a dictionary of sets, and the dictionary is indexed by the by the column title. So here's all right, so we've printed the possible values, color, shape, size, and now this is working how we want it. We know we have all the colors that we had in our file, we have all the sizes in our file, we have all the shapes, and we have all the numbers. And this might be a good thing if you need to get it, if you have a new file and you just kind of want to say, well, how how much does my data change? What's a good way to tabulate this in the future? So you could, put this code together very quickly and play with it.
What is the set function?
A set is wonderful because a set is like a list, only if you add something twice, it won't add it twice. So I could say I have a set of, I'm reading it, I have a set of, add baseball, add basketball, add baseball, add basketball, add soccer ball. And at the end, I'm just going to have baseball, basketball, soccer ball. So it keeps the unique values, and that's a very nice feature.
Well, it's also more efficient if you're checking, right? If there's a presence of an element in a set, it's faster than if you have it on a list, because a list has to go one by one, while on a set is linear time. So you saw if A in set.
Right. It doesn't have to go through the whole list. Right. Yeah, exactly. So if I want to know if something's in my set of all possible values, I'm only looking at it at once. So sets are nice.
It's already a dictionary, right?
Right.
So I guess I'm not seeing like this whole set data.
It's not
seeing the value of it, because to me, I guess you can do the same thing with a dictionary.
What I want to know is,
As opposed to a list.
I'm not sure how I would do that. I just want to collect what are all the different values that showed up in each column.
You have counter, you have things that kind of don't have.
Yeah, counters are next. Right now we're just seeing, okay, right now we still have the sets now. Yeah, count, now, how many?
It didn't even have any specifics. It just said set.
So it's multiple set equivalent.
I mean, there would have been a prettier way to print it. I mean, I could have gone, okay, so in column color, these are the values I found. I found blue, red, and green. I mean, I could have gone for this. I mean, I could have made it prettier, but here we're just seeing what's there. And that was good enough for me. So next thing is we're going to counter. We're going to use counter, and that was somebody tweeted that, and I thought that was marvelous because I'd never seen a counter. And we've been tabulating CSV files, and we've just used dictionaries to tabulate them. But there's actually something that if you add to it, it'll add to it, and you can play with them, which is a fun thing to do to see how they work. If you start off by initializing it, tell it what you. And then there's two ways you can add something to your count. You can use update, and it will automatically add it in. Like here we've updated scary 3 times, and we now have 4 scaries. Or you can just add it. It's like here, I have a tuple of scary and monsters, and I've added 12 to it. And there we go. That's counters to tell us how many values in column. So here we have code, and all of this is on GitHub. So you can get the slides online, and you can get the code online, and you can get some earlier variations of the code online. So the other thing that Bachelor said was make sure your font is big. So I want to make sure. And color. And this is a screen copy out of PyCharm, and so I'm using its default coloring for the syntax. So we're opening our file, we're reading it as you saw before, we're adding to the set of all possible values, and then for the count of the field, we're adding 1. And that gives us how many of each. Ta-da. Now you might ask, now that we have this magic update field, why did we do count? Here we go. We have count plus equal 1 instead of, why not just say update? Okay, I'm reading another red, why don't we just update it? And I tried that because I thought, well, why wasn't I doing that? And this is what happened. Counter likes to count. It sees red, and it says, oh, that's R and E and D. And so it sort of puts it all together. It worked okay with number, but everything else, it didn't count it. So that wasn't what we wanted. So I had to backtrack and not use special magic fields. All right, so starting with this output, we say this is nice. We know how many of each value in each column, but how many red squares, how many big red squares, how many small blue triangles. And that's a natural a tuple would be a natural data structure for that. Oops. There. Down, down, down. All right, so I got rid of that number column because it wasn't very intuitive. I just wanted to show you originally that a CSV file you could have not just strings, but other things. But we're really counting colors and sizes and shapes, and it was simpler to cut it down to size there. All right, so here with tuples, I ran into a similar problem as I ran into with this red strings. It really liked to take my tuple apart and add it all up. And I kept playing with it, thinking I could, do something, but no, I just had to, once again, not use update, but just say, okay, the counter I have for this tuple, I have to add. I just have to add to it. I can't just use magic update anymore. So here's my combo counter. You saw these before. We have a collections counter. We have the possible values. We have the possible tuples, and it might be more elegant to just have the tuples in with the possible values, but now here's the use of enumerate, and I never saw that before. I looked at some slides and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So I've resolved these. Use it now if I'm looping, because it'll count, and it'll also, if you want to count starting at 1, you can start at 1, or you can change what you're starting with. By default, it will start at 0. So where I have level head in enumerate of the field names, it'll go 0, field name 1, or field name 0, 1, field name 0, 2. I'm updating the possible values into my set. And now I'm going to count them all. First, I'm up at the top. We're counting the plain things like we did before. How many reds, how many blues, how many triangles. And then at the bottom, we're creating the tuple. How many red triangles, how many blue squares. And this is code to print it out. And I'm not going to go into it because you could look at it. We're going through all the possible values, and then we're saying, in the interest of not having a gigantic output, we say, okay, let's only print non-zero values, but I want to print out every single combination that I found in my file that was not 0. And there I did it. And actually, we don't really want to see that. So what we're looking at something that looks more like this. Okay, my number of squares, number of red squares, number of blue squares. And we want to indent for that. So, as you can see, squares is the lowest level of indentation. Red squares, higher level of indentation. Big red squares would be even more indented. So we could have something that just reads in the tuple and counts how many things are in it and multiplies space by the number, by that level, and outputs a string that is buffered at the beginning with the correct indentation. Another way to do it, and that's part of what I keep running into, is see 6 ways to do everything, and you have to pick one. Here's one that doesn't use class variables. It's just going to sit independently and be a utility. I'm going to tell it the level of indentation. I'm going to give it a message like number of red squares. I'm going to give it a sum like 12. And then I can optionally say indent 2 spaces or indent 5 spaces. Or I can even use a dash character or something other than a space. So instead of all that space at the beginning, you might see dashes or little asterisks or whatever you want. And that's fun if you want to do that. And then I create my indented message. First thing is the number of spaces. Are you seeing that? Okay, yeah. Number of spaces, and then the string, and then the sum. And that's nice. But, the thing is, we want to be even more flexible. If you have this big wide thing, if your message is here and your number is there, that's too far away. But if your message is here and your number is squished into it, you don't like it. So what we want to do is be able to tune the field widths depending on what kind of data we have. And so I learned how to using format to format a format string. And it's worth playing with that because The first couple of times didn't work very well, so I'm okay, because all right, so you have these double brackets. So the way this works is this double bracket 0 colon, that just passes through. And then we have the 0D in here, and that's the thing that's being formatted by the format string. So the 3 is going to go into the 0D and replace it. So 03S. And then, okay, all right, let's do it with more numbers. Okay, nice. Okay, I got it to do it with three values. I'm rocking. What I want is I want to have my space characters, and then I want to have the message in a particular field, and then I want a number, and I want the number right adjusted. So I needed to stick in a minus. And after a certain amount of playing, I was able to find out how to do that.
So I think you mentioned, you kind of alluded to pandas in the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah.
The pandas module. So did you try that at all, like instead of like the CSV module, or?
No. The thing is, I had some very simple stuff to do, and I was just trying to come up with okay, let's do it this way. As I said at the beginning, the talk is really on how to use nice data structures, because we were doing stuff like this, but we weren't taking advantage. Basically, you had written it like it was working. The reason why I was tabulating it, one thing I was going to say is, when you know that you're printing squares, red squares, blue squares, you can create a lot simpler code. This code that I'm demonstrating here, I'm trying to make it very general so I could put in one kind of CSV file and another kind of CSV file. In practice, I found that we know what kind of file we're going to get. So
okay,
it's,
CSVs usually are very orderly and organized and clean.
Oh yeah, we know what's in them, and we tabulate we do bank statements, and so we'll print a lot of bank statements. We have CSV files, and we want to send a report saying, okay, how many of this kind of bank statement, how many of that kind of bank statement, how many of this kind was only...
So you just felt like you didn't need what was in pandas to do...
We were unaware of Panda, actually, and we're using Python 2.4, and nobody's doing anything that's, we know it's like... So, when I started the idea, it was like, okay, how can I make things a little more advanced than what we're doing now, So, okay. Where do we get to? Classless, adjustable, format. There we go. So these are all the things we might want to tune, whether we're using a space character for indentation, whether we're indenting 2 spaces or 12 spaces, the number width, which is kind of small, when we probably would want to change that, and the total width of that line. But if they're all sitting there in the class method, then you don't have to clutter up the regular indent message with it. So one thing that I found when I tried to feed it any file was that I quickly indented all the way across, so my message width became negative, and Python didn't like that when I tried to format it. So I put in this assertion statement. I also experimented with a while it's greater than, and sort of moved it down, but I think a better thing is to just have the assert trigger the error. The assert makes sure that you don't have a negative message width. Because that doesn't work. Okay, so we're testing it. So I left the debug statements in to show if we're running it. The level 1 shows up there with that format string. Level 2, is indented with that format string above it. Level 3, and that's kind of a nice little thing. Now we're going to put it into a class. So we'll open it up, we'll have the possible values, the possible tuples. And as I said, often you know what the possible values are, and you know which tuples you want. Like, I only want the red squares, I don't really want the big red squares. So, and then we're going to have a counter that we can count how many red squares and how many reds. And we'll use this. So the simple... so the class variables are the counter, the 2 dictionaries, the set of headers, so we know what the columns are, the output report that we're writing to, the indenter object of type indent message, that class we created before, and the total levels. We're initializing the set. We're looping to collect our counts. Oops. Now to write to the report file, we have one thing that'll just write a line to your output file. And I found I was repeating the, create my indented message, write it out. So we have write indent to do that. And here we go. And I ended up using recursion, which seems so much old-fashioned, but as I said, if you know exactly how many columns you have, how many columns you want to print on, you don't have to get this complicated. It was fun. So, oops, no. Okay. All right, so to print my report, I start off with all the headers, and then I start off with the first header and all the possible values for that column. And I said, okay, for all the possible values for that first column, let's first print the first value, red, total number of red. And that's that's the self-write indent. The reason will self-word message of item, which at the moment, if you feed it red, it returns red. It's because, say you have a code for red, like 3, but 3 should be red. Or you have red, but you want it to say red shapes or something. So you might want to, I put it in some stubs that you might want to return some nicer messages, because that's basically what we do, is we want to make nice reports for our client. So now if there were 0 reds things, then we don't have to loop through and find how many red triangles, because we know it's 0. But if there's a non-zero number of red, and we know that there's more things left, self.total levels is the number of columns that we're reporting on. If we're already at red, if we already did size, shape, or if we only have red, we don't want to go any more into the recursive method, where level equals the length of the combo start. So if we feed this red squares, the level is 2. So let's see. Headers level. Right, so
What is combo start?
the combo start is what we fed into it here, which is at the very first, we fed it in red. And in this case, all we're seeing is combo start would be red, but it's a tuple, and the length of it is 1. And then we're going one level more. So for this red, we're going to look at the next list of possible variations and get triangles, squares, circles. So we create another, basically we create a new combo from the one we were fed. If we were fed red triangles, we'd go red triangles big. So this is how we're building on the recursive thing. We're getting the total from indexing the tuple. We're getting the message one more time by using a method that we're not really using, but it's there in case, if you want to index red squares to be beautiful red squares, then that'll return it for you. We're writing in an indent, and then we're checking the levels, and we're going to see if we need to clam anything else onto this, or if we're finished. If we're finished, then the recursion ends. Otherwise, we call ourselves again. And these are the stubs I was talking about. If you want to print out something different from what the column actually says, then you'd have methods like this. Given the word, what do we want to do with it? At the moment, nothing. And given a combo, how do we want to join it? At the moment, we're just going to put a space between them. And then because I have this flexible thing as opposed to a specific thing, I'm like, okay, so given an in path of a CSV file, an out path of a report that we want to write, and an optional how big we want the line. For my little shape thing, I want it little, but for something more complicated, I'd want it bigger. We create the CSV reporter object. We read it in. We create the indent messages object. We, since this was optional, we set the width just in case we wanted to. We're opening the output file. We're using the indent tool. We're writing default report, and we're closing it. So now I'm calling it with my simple csv.text in and simple report.text out. Isn't that pretty? And, if that's as complicated, basically if that's all you need, that's fine. If you want something more than, yes, pandas, but, let's see. But then I wanted to say, well, how flexible is this? So I sort of looked on the web and tried to find, the fact is I needed some data that, a lot of CSV files is like giving you unique values in each column, whereas the one I wrote was just sort of how many similar values in each column. This little tool that as currently made, I wanted to do star data, but it's not going to. Basically, it's parsing a set of unique values. It's counting how many of each kind of thing. It's not saying between the hours of 10 and 12, we did this. And so I simplified this to the 4 columns because it's very general. So there's some DC crime data that splits stuff up. So they have the midnight shift, the day shift, the evening shift. And then they have what terrible thing somebody did. And then they had whether they used a knife or a gun or something else. And then they had various neighborhoods, but I figured I'd just stick with district. There's the 1st and the 4th and the 2nd. So that's what if I get to the end of the slides, I will open up the CSV data and show you, but I haven't been able to do that. So, okay, so this is the data. This is my input and output directory. Input file, this is what I want the output file to look like. And I said, okay, let's make it 60 characters wide because it's going to be longer. Oops, here we go. And there's the output. And I didn't leave. What I should have done is change the number width from 4 because that wasn't big enough. I should have changed it to 6 or something, but that's not hard. But it did spit it all out using the same thing I'd written for my little shapes thing, which is nice. And that's what I said I'd do. Write a tool for one little file and show that it works for another file. And there we go. It's flexible. And what we have. Yeah, so, all right. So we're looking at this, and it would be nice if we had 4th, 5th, 6th district, not 6, the order in which it occurred. It would be nice if we could say, if the column had like the number of things and we could sum it all up, or it would be nice if we said, this happened between here and there. The other means of tabulating it. And also, I wasn't sure how well it would handle if there's a blank value in a column. I didn't write anything to do something about that. And you would want to add that if your simple CSV file was going to have blank values. But, depending on how hard you want to get. Okay, so these are the links. Did I really finish in 15 minutes? I've been through 60 slides in 15 minutes. Okay, so I can show you the other stuff I have on my desktop, such as, not that. Ooh. Oh, that's crime stat. So that's the PyCharm. That is, all right, that was my first attempt. Let's see, I'm trying to find you so that's the entire 4 columns fed in. Come on, OpenOffice. What else do I have? I wanted to show you here we go. Here's if you just open it up in a spreadsheet, it'll parse it for you. It's happy. If you want to read the original one, let's see, open recent.
This technique requires you to read all the data at once in memory.
It's putting it all in data. It's not saving each row, but it is tabulating it all. And we're not. I think yesterday I saw some talks on splitting up. We got the sparkling pandas. Yeah. So this is just simple stuff.
Do you use like a read, or is it like open as? Like, what are you using to read it in?
Python 2.4 didn't accept open as. I had to say OFT open. But here in this talk, I did open as f, and then f equals dict reader. Oops.
Can you go back to that?
I don't know. I'm seeing stuff. I think hang on. All right. So do you want to look at, why don't we go into PyCharm then? I'm trying to find the big files, but PyCharm. Okay, so this was a different version of the project I wrote where it was more specialized for crime statistics. Oh, and I noticed something in PyCharm this morning. You can have presentation mode where it makes it big. Okay, so here, this is the earlier version. This is when, okay, I know what order I want my output in. I'm going to feed in day, evening, midnight. I'm going to feed in gun, knife, others. And that's the output, and that's the order I want it in. And this is also all up on the GitHub site. And then so there's a simple total width, total indent, maximum level, which is like I was reading in the entire CSV file with lots and lots of columns, but I realized I didn't really want to see them all. Let's see. How do I get out of view?
So how are you reading, is that it, our open?
Let me find the, exit presentation mode. All right. Let me go to the, okay. Let me go to the actual project I'm demonstrating, and then over here. There we go. All right, let's make this bigger.
I think you started at 9:45, by the way, not 10.
Oh, good. So at least I took a half hour on my 60 slides. All right. I just thought it would go the other way. But this is good because I can show all this other stuff. So here I was trying to use update instead of plus, and that's where it doesn't work. Can you guys see that, or do we need to go into presentation mode thing? Here. Let me go into simple CSV reporter.py, and then you can see how I'm opening it all up. View. Presentation mode. Okay. Okay, no questions. So does anybody want to see anything like the CSV files or any more of the code or so?
It's on GitHub, right?
What?
What's the repo? Is that GitHub?
If you just Google her name, you'll find it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I want to see the repo.
Let's see. View. Presentation mode. Exit false. Let me find the slides again. How do I exit full screen? Okay. Here we go. Got it. So I have all the window. And there. There we go. We'll summits for 2 minutes per slide. You want to look at a CSV file? You want to tell me how I should have done it? Questions, comments? Dead silence. All right, fine. Yeah, and I wasn't sure what the legal thing was. There was something on the DC crime statistics saying if you use our data, you have to put in our, some kind of legalese. I don't know. So I stuck it on the slide. I'm not sure. That seems to be related to like if you're really using it as a live feed as opposed to a, hey, I've got data to put with. Yeah, so the iterative thing was the, let's see. Do y'all have any links that you've copied? Should I open up some CSV files or something? Or okay. Hello. Said it was a beginner talk. Okay. Thank you. What? Oh yeah, sure. Let's see. Ah. Okay. I was afraid, yeah, because somebody said it was like 2 minutes per slide, and I was afraid, so I was rushing through it, and I was like, I don't know. Yeah. I didn't know how long it would take, so I figured it would take me 5 minutes to figure out how the equipment worked, and 15 minutes for. There we go. Let's see. Finder. No name. That must be it, right? There. It is also up on SlideShare, so it's there. Okay, that's it. And then do you eject it? Is it safe to eject now, or well, it's red, or? Okay. Well, y'all sitting there. Do you want me to do something else, or? Let's read some CSV files. There we go. Documents. Oh, that's good. So we already seen that one. Now that's the other one. Let's see. So the other thing I did, in case you're curious, is all right, so I got overconfident and tried to deal with some other data. And I can show you how that failed. So here's another one off of the 538 blog. And I tried to simplify it. And if you look in PyCharm, I wrote so I wrote a method that would just read through an entire directory and say, okay, all of the CSV files, read it in, get its name, and create an output report. And so that was a cool idea, but the tool wasn't really set up to look all that great. I cut it out of the side, so it worked. But here we go. We'll go into presentation mode so you can look at it big, because I can't believe how. All right, so here's the big test. So input dir, output dir. And this was another cool thing I found the other day was glob. Anybody ever use glob? Yeah, so that'll give you, I mean, it's the same as if you're on Linux and you want to do ls abc /star, QRS, but you can give the wildcard thing to glob and it will return all the files that match it. So here we go. Indir is this glob. It has these, anything in my input directory ending in CSV I want on the list. And now I'm looping through the list. I'm getting the base name, which is used any of these os.path methods. So, I mean, that's another place where I found that people, when I found some of the established code that had been done, they didn't know about this os.path, that Python is smart enough to know what a file looks like, a file path looks like. So I was finding people who'd used the split command to split by the slash. But, all you have to do is if you have a path, you can do os base name will give you the file name at the end. Split extension, if you have abc.txt or qrs.csv, it'll give you abc CSV. It'll give you the start and the end.
Yeah, the thing is that method escapes like the command line
backslashes and everything for you.
Right, right.
You do like a split. Sometimes you have like a folder that has a space. Sometimes you get messed.
Oh, yeah. It can't handle that. Well, I usually use Linux, so. So basically the idea was to take the CSV file, use the name to create an output report, run the test. And I did. And take it full screen. And so let's look at all my output. All right, so documents download. There we go. So here was another thing I tried to make. Basically, I tried to create some quick CSV files that were simple enough for me to use. And that's not it. Okay. This was some CSV data that somebody used in a talk yesterday. So I said, "Oh, I'll grab yours." Let's see. I want to show you the output. Why don't I see this? PyGotham demo. Big test. Output. So, can you open 3 things at once? Will it let you do that or not? Oh, what do you know? All right. So, I mean, it wasn't terrible. Okay, so here are people. How often do you sleep alone, and how long have you been together? So, I did okay with that one, sort of. So it was. But if you get a new data file, you can take an existing tool and sort of, all right, what happens if I try something with it? What will it do? What kind of information is in there? It'll tabulate it. It won't look good, but then you can make it look good. You can tune it some more. Obviously, I needed a wider message. I might have needed a better way of dealing with it, but still, it showed you could do it. Where's the other one? And this is the weird one. So I thought this came out weird. Let me find the input file for that one. Oh, I get it. Okay. So now that report reported. Now that's kind of interesting because it. Oh, okay. So here it would have helped to have had assembly district. I really don't know what happened with this one. That doesn't look right at all. I mean, I guess the idea is that they were all unique values here, so there was no like. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking it would say, so there's just like the kind of thing it wouldn't work for. I wasn't being very careful with it. What you want is maybe for it to add things up or something, but I don't know. It's not the kind of CSV file that the tool was written for. And oh, yeah, that's just where to find them. All right. PyChar. Oh, PyChar. I want to get out of. Thing is, if you are in Tools. Ah, well, that's nice. It does let you do this. All right. That's not exciting. So let's see, the report with levels. Okay. Okay, so here is, you can't read that, can you? Format. Much bigger. So one of the issues I ran into when I was trying to get completely flexible, as many levels as you want, is at some point with just too many columns, it indented all the way over and it gave me a 60-page report. So I started updating the file to say, okay, after a certain number of levels, you're not going to print it on a new line indented, you're going to print it on the same line. So that was, how that worked, okay. During the evening shift with a gun, theft, in this district, and that ward or something, ANC was some kind of a ward and letter thing. So one could get a little more fancy. Let me show that one, report with levels. Does anyone care? Is anybody looking? Take it away. All right, so let's see. This was in... Make this bigger. All right. Okay, that was the code that did that. If we're above the maximum number of levels, stop breaking the line. Just space it. So, print on same line. There we go. Basically, we take the level and we're just adding it. We're just adding it to the line that we've already created, but if there's too many on that, then it'll put in a new line. So one can play with this forever. I mean, it's anybody interested in anything in particular? Want to look at or just say goodbye? Here's more. Count more stuff.
Do you use it for work?
Well, I mean, I was trying to make, basically the kind of files I'm using. I was trying not to use my work data, so I was trying to.
Use the code.
Well, not exactly. I mean, the reason why I wrote the proposal for the talk was because we had all these reconciliation reports that we were creating out of tab files, out of these tab-separated files, and people tended to just write a brand new script for each recon report that needed to be created, and I was like, gosh, there's got to be, some general thing we could write, and then just customize it for each new thing, or wouldn't we know, we know what the headers are, and we know what we want to say, and we know what combinations of those headers we want. Now, I'm working on by myself. I know nobody's doing really sophisticated Python. And if you go into my blog, you can, laugh because you can see all these, I left it up there. I mean, it says, okay, well, how would I do this? And, it didn't occur to me that you can index by a tuple. So I was taking, the column values and I was putting a little underscore between them. So I was creating a string for each combination. And that worked up to a point, and I was trying to create dictionaries of dictionaries, and I mean, there's lots of different things that I tried. Okay, 5 minutes, lovely. Now that I've explored this a little bit more, I commiserated with somebody at work because, no, we can't use counters. It doesn't work. We can't use with. I mean, counters would be an obvious thing that would make things easier for us, but we're using it, even if we're using 2.4 or 2.6.1, and counters weren't until 2.6.5, but all right, okay, we can use dictionaries. The last time I wrote a recon report thing, I think I did overkill. I had too many of these tuples in there, and I'm going on vacation this week, but I sort of sent an email to my colleague saying, well, I think it was overkill, and I think it's going to affect performance, but this is how you probably ought to change it. But it's quite beautiful. Doing stuff we never did before. So I think that's the next thing that we're really going to have to explore is how to, the best way to do it when we have, I mean, the particular client I was working for didn't have very huge files, but some of the clients we do, there are thousands and thousands of rows in the CSV file that you need to report on, that you need to tabulate, that you need to sum. So that would be the next thing I would investigate. All right, I'm getting out of here. Everybody finished? Okay. All right. Thanks.